Hello, chat. Hello, everybody, and anybody who might watch this tomorrow. Right now, it's getting late in the evening, but I said I'd go live for a little while to talk about Micheál Martin and his latest comments on Ireland for the Irish's incitement to violence. I thought that was a compelling enough thing to have a ramble about. I don't want to spend too long. I'll just look at that video. I want to talk a little bit more about this Charlie Kirk stuff that's going on a little bit, and then put a pin in it. So anyway, just want to check the chat, hang out. How are you all getting on? So I want to watch this video. I think I'm on X as well. I don't know. I haven't actually seen it yet. I've just watched some commentary on it, or like people commenting on it. I want to see this. It should be good. I'm going to get straight into it and share my screen. Bam. That's it. So let's have a look. Volume up. So Irish people saying Ireland for the Irish is having an impact where violence is happening and it's tantamount to incitement, says Taoiseach Micheál Martin. Right. Okay, I'm listening.
Health services in smaller towns and villages. But one big issue facing them, they say, is around an inward-looking nationalism, that negative nationalism is creeping in and taking a stronghold, particularly in disadvantaged communities. Taoiseach Micheál Martin explained what that looks like in reality.
Inward-looking negative nationalism in disadvantaged communities. Well, we're already off to a lovely media framing anyway. I don't know if she's directly quoting another person. I think it sounds like she's using her own little bit of ad-libbing there. See the way she kind of says negative, like really, like she basically elongates the N and does like a pain face. Negative nationalism, inward looking. It's so strained. Have to go off that again.
Them, they say, is around an inward looking nationalism, that negative nationalism is creeping in and taking a stronghold, particularly in disadvantaged.
Sorry, there's never enough with this media. Like you can listen to it about 4 times over and still like spot and yet a new little minor subtle detail of framing. So she's like negative nationalism. Oh, like it's a bad smell or like something ugly or whatever, right? Or like you almost lower your voice, like something bad. But it's not just that. She said the word creeping in. Oh my God. Like the issue she's talking or referring to is national people being against immigration, basically, which is about the majority of the country. So she's misframing it. It's most people are against immigration now, obviously. But she's calling it negative nationalism, creeping in like a fucking cockroach, right? Into communities and especially disadvantaged communities, which is a concern troll, because what they're basically saying is you're a cream cracker if you're into this negative nationalism creeping in, and you're poor, you're low status, all this kind of uneducated. So that's a bit of fun already off to the races. And we haven't even gotten to Micheál Martin yet. One more go off this. I don't know who this one is.
Health services in smaller towns and villages. But one big issue facing them, they say, is around an inward-looking nationalism, that negative nationalism is creeping in and taking a stronghold, particularly in disadvantaged communities. Taoiseach Micheál Martin explained what that looks like in reality.
The predominant theme in there was because of their ethnicity. Their parents might have been born abroad, they came to Ireland, the young people would have been born here, and they're afraid to go into town. They're being attacked. One young man.
They're being attacked. I mean, like, look, I don't want anybody to be attacked, but we've seen all this kind of stuff before. By the way, there's an image. Oh, Stephen, but he uses his Irish name. He's from Kilkenny. He had a tweet. I see. This is the thing. I wish in a way like I had AI brain, like Elon Musk's Neuralink sometimes, because I'll think of some tweet or whatever that I just want to blast up on screen and play as it's popped into my mind. I can't. I'd have to go looking for it. But if anyone knows it. It was a picture anyway of young Fianna. This is a like tangent, right? A picture of young Fianna Fáil, I think, and it was a bunch of like 16-year-old young Fianna Fáils. And his tweet was that they must be grown in a petri dish because they all looked like the standard physiognomy cutouts of these gombeen politicians. And there was every type of one, the fat, rich, fathead, happy out, like rolling, squeezed up face type of one, kind of like Neil Richmond or one of them. There was this kind of skinny glasses one, kind of like like looks like a GP, a bit like Pater Tobin, kind of like. And then there was a Micheál Martin one, and it was so fucking funny because the guy had Micheál Martin face like perfect, and he was even doing the, I can't do it, but there's this sort of face, the smile he put on was fucking Micheál Martin, and he was presumably not actually related to Micheál Martin, but they either are bred that way or they stand in front of the mirror and like actually contort their faces into the right. I don't know how it works, but it fucking drives me mad, their faces. Anyway, I'm sure a lot of you feel that way. But okay, so what's he saying? Sorry.
Being born here, and they're afraid to go into town. They're being attacked. One young man said to me that his sister was chased home the other day from school by people. And
I just love like hyper fixating on everything. But you see here how he pauses for just a second and he says they were chased home. Now this is an alleged story again, right? He's basically sitting down soliciting stories from people, right? Whatever. Either way. But notice how he says they were chased home by people. And what he meant to say was Irish people or scumbags, Irish scumbags or Irish racist scumbags or some version of, but effectively Irish. What he meant to say is they weren't chased home by black people or something. They were chased home by Irish people. He obviously can't say that for various reasons, but I do believe that's what was on the tip of his forked tongue there. On the tips of his forked tongue.
One young man said to me that his sister was chased home the other day from school by people.
By people.
This is because there's a narrative growing in this country which is trying to other people because of their colour, their race, their creed. And I think the vast majority of Irish people recoil at this. But we have to be better, more strategic in dealing with this and engaging with this because this is undermining the dignity of every child born in this country. We always cherish children, and irrespective of the background, these attacks should not happen. And the type of language that we're experiencing about Irish for the Irish and all of that is now creating, it's having an impact where violence is happening, and it's tantamount to an incitement.
Well, isn't that something? Or isn't that something altogether? I mean, where to begin? Where to begin? The whole. It's funny because the narrative on this stuff is so far off that that there's this background knowledge that kind of skews the whole thing. But like if you don't have it, it's hard to reach people. Like maybe an old person watching RTE News just takes that, but at what point would he listen to an Irish person who says, I am worried about being attacked by migrants for being Irish or something like that, right? And he says, I was at some meeting, some function where a teenager told me his story, and here's what he told me. He said he was chased and all of this stuff, right? He was chased by a foreigner, and he was very scared, and they're not even going into town anymore because they're worried. These stories are real as well, but you wouldn't get that. He wouldn't have that conversation. And in fact, if you said to him, I have a friend here, just to let you know, he's got a testimony he wants to tell you. He said he was chased by a load of foreigners, and he's worried about the amount of foreigners coming into the country, forming enclaves, forming their own communities, having a sort of antipathy towards people who are from here originally, and ghettos and gangsterism and all this kind of stuff, or gypsies or whatever it is. he's worried about all that, and of course he knows it's not every one of them, of course, but you know it's a problem that exists within. Micheál Martin would say that's far right. Get out of here. So it's like it's the basic premise is like, wait, so when Indians get attacked by a minority of like someone allegedly, so someone in Tala beats up a guy or whatever, like we're all on the hook for that as a country. Like Ireland has a lot of splaining to do, and we're all racist and the rest of it. And there needs to be extra money given to Indian groups. And Prime Minister Modi is probably talking about it in half of the Indian media, the Irish media. It's like a coordinated hit job, and that's all well and good. But then when Aisling Murphy is killed by Puska, as far as I know, in Tala, by the way, I don't believe in the case of Tala there was some evidence of like there wasn't even a Jussie Smollett thing of like this is MAGA country. There was no one said this is Ireland, Ireland for the Irish. I don't believe so. With the Tala case, certainly in a lot of cases, there's no sort of explicit evidence or whatever. Even if you take the American circumstance, because the same goes for there. I don't think Derek Chauvin, whatever you say about the policing technique, there was never a moment where he said, "Oh, you're black and I'm kneeling on your neck because you're black and I'm white." It was kind of inferred. The whole thing was inferred from the scenario. He's one race, you're the other, you're doing this to him. It's kind of inferred. And that's the, so it was an inferred racism from whoever beats up an Indian in Tala, let's say, and it's a national crisis. But when Aisling Murphy is killed by Joseph Puskin, we say, listen, I don't think he would have been going out there killing gypsy women. I think he targeted her because she was Irish. I don't even think we don't have scientific proof of that necessarily, but I think we all just kind of get that. They say that you're far right. One individual killed another individual. It's an unfortunate tragedy. We need to, our thoughts are with them and move on. That's it. And if you say, whoa, I'm not happy with that. I think we need to focus on it. I'm annoyed. I'm outraged. I'm everything else. He would go back to the same thing. Well, that's far right? It's just all a bunch of people. So again, you come back to now he's got teenagers telling him stories, alleged stories about my sister was chased because of her hijab in fucking Athlone or whatever. Allegedly, some teenager telling a story. And of course, whatever event they're at, it's like these stories are being solicited. It's like, put up your hand if you've got a good story. And he's talking about it on the news and saying they're afraid to go into town. So it just on the face of it, it's bullshit. I would actually take the equality, all this kind of stuff, concern about sectarian or intercommunal violence and all of that. I would take that somewhat seriously if it was applied equally. I still wouldn't be happy with our country being stolen, but on the basis of purely peace, harmony, not targeting, not inciting, all of that, I'd say, well, at least it's at least this big dynamic is equitable. But it's totally not. We are just lambs to the slaughter, and it was the same with Irina in the United States and Charlotte recently. Same dynamic. Just look at her versus George Floyd, to name, or St. George again. She's just an unfortunate victim of a crime, but George Floyd is a martyr, a racial martyr, a targeted martyr. There's just no, like, it is completely unengageable, that kind of way. And I'll give you an example, and this YouTube might have an issue with this, but you know what, maybe I'd be better off getting kind of banned anyway. I'll just play this one. This is just an example. My screen is blacking out. This is the one I always hold on to. It's an Irish scenario. It's a video of like people fighting and stuff, so I don't know. Like I say, I don't want to get banned from YouTube, but if and when that happens, it's just an excuse to get onto some Rumble or something else where I actually don't have to mind my P's and Q's so much anyway. So, share screen. So, a point I made before was about this Indian drama, about Indians being attacked and all of that. Now, the guards came out and said, actually, the anti-Indian attacks haven't gone up significantly. There might be one or two isolated cases of this or that, but there's no epidemic of anti-Indian violence going on. And we had like scores of articles across Irish media and all of the rest of it. And we've had this before with George and Kent show and this and that. And there was a woman looked at askew and, Kells or whatever. It's like a Muslim woman was, a comment was passed or whatever it is, right? These kind of charades were put up to. And again, sometimes it is true. See, this is where the rubber meets the road. Maybe there is a case where an Irish racist, an Irish, whatever you want to call it, someone who's xenophobic or nativist or whatever the word they want to use, right? He says, you're like, basically, get out of my country or whatever, and they push someone, they punch someone or whatever. Now, if you ask me on the face of it, I'll say I don't condone that. Like even I'm a softie about like, generally speaking, people getting a fair hearing and stuff like. If someone told me fifth hand that a foreigner had done something and let's all go beat him up, I'd be like, I don't know that he did that. I'm not just in the mood of like going around I don't have people suffer or, attack people for what they are or whatever. I'm not into all that. And I don't like it. So individually, some case if a foreigner gets punched and it's related to them being foreign, personally, I kind of condemn it and I don't like it. But in terms of what the political class and the media want to make of it, I can't be pushing it. I can't get on board and say, let's all join this big national outcry and campaign against it. I more just tend to park it and go, yeah, if you ask me directly, I don't support that. But am I going to make a big song and dance of it out of all the tragedies that happen in any country of any given day of all sorts? Is that going to be top of my radar? No, because for the simple reason that when Irish people are attacked by foreigners and discriminated against and abused and oppressed, they're ignored. And when they complain about it, they're called far right and marginalized from society. So like, it's like, I would have sympathy. I do have sympathy, but like, I would come out and say, hey, this shouldn't be happening. And I would spend a lot of more time on it if the state and the NGOs and all that spent a lot more time on when Irish people are attacked. So that's the thing. Anyways, I'm going on, right? But let's see this. I did a video, just a compilation of some of the worst ones. You have the boy in Carrigaline in Cork being stabbed by a bunch of Africans, Afro-London individuals, and they're like, oh, this see, this is YouTube. They're going like, this N-word is fucked, and look at the blood fam and all this kind of stuff. And they're basically howling and laughing. And we know the world star vibe. It's very obvious that it's a racial antipathy moment. They're stabbing him. It's cruel. It's callous. It's typical. We all know it. And they said, well, no. Those, the black guy that stabbed him and the other guy kind of laughing and jeering, they didn't say, you're white. I'm attacking you because you're white. This is officially a hate crime. But then a couple of weeks later in Limerick, a guy kicks the head off a white boy for basically no reason and starts shouting about 400 years of slavery. That's an open and shut hate crime. It's like a Alexa, give me a dictionary definition of a hate crime. You'd go, a hate crime in its most classical, unambiguous form would be one person has a subjective grievance against another race based on a generality, and they are taking out their racial animosity or the racial alleged grievance on this person violently, without cause, like without self-defense or any of that, and they are shouting and hollering about, their grievance, 400 years of slavery, oh, we had the famine, whatever it is, right? But it's abundantly clear. And I begged and pleaded for NGOs and media to talk about it. They all ignored me. I tagged them all at the time. And I remember thinking at the time, I'm going to make sure to make a point of asking them to speak about this. And I've done so with everyone. because I know they would be pushing the hate crime, hate speech thing down the road. Of course, at some point, someone's going to tug someone's hijab, someone's going to punch someone because they don't like immigrants. That's society. It's full of all sorts of it goes in a lot of directions. And if there's consternation around immigration, unhappiness and all that, of course, you're going to see a rise in this kind of anger and to some extent. So I was like, well, if and when that comes, or if and when they decide to hone in on whatever little bit of it there is, I will refer back to this and say, hey, I'm going to care, or I do care. I don't want anyone to suffer of any type, right? But I'm going to make as much of noise about it, about your thing, as you did about us when we were getting beaten around the place and attacked. And in this case, stabbed with Carrigaline. They never did, and they to this day, they don't. So it's like, that's your thing with Micheál Martin. First off, half the stories, most of them are fake bullshit anyway. And B, you fucking white bastards. That was after George and Kensho, right? Lunged at a guard with a knife and he got shot. And there were race riots, effectively, in Blanchardstown, sort of Clonee, somewhere between there. And they barricaded Irish people into shops like Dawn of the Dead and start banging at the stuff, and they start chasing people up and down the street and interrogating people driving by based on this hype, George and Kensho, on the back of George Floyd and this kind of black terror, right, that swept the world in 2020, 21. But again, we have it just right there. You fucking white bastards banging on people who you have imprisoned in a shop. Nothing from Micheál Martin, nothing from an NGO, nothing from a journalist, nothing from the guards, nothing from Drew Harris or any other fucking guard. Nothing. So that's the baseline that we're all operating on, apparently. It's not to justify anything or any of that, but I'm just saying, if things that are out of my control, none of my business, I don't promote it, I don't condone it. But do you want, I'm a busy man, I've only got so many things I can focus my attention on, right? There's car crashes, there's domestic violence, there's a lot of stuff out there. For it to stand out to me, it would have had to stand out when this happened too, and it didn't. So
stupid! It's everything we want to fall into the fucking slavery! Huh? Report this, report! Yeah! Shit! Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh shit! Go! This nigga are mashed up, fam! Mashed up! No, stop! Stop! Guy, this nigga fucked! Guy! Oh my god! Guy! Man!
Boy, I'm sorry, please, boy! Boy, get over here! Please, boy, please, boy!
okay, so you kind of get the idea, right? Enough's enough. But you know, the brutalization of people in this country and the scale of the immigration, the destruction of people's lives with all the immigration, all these new bills going to Indians and all that, it literally ruins people's lives. People who would have had 3 kids have no kids. People who people have their lives kind of destroyed, and well, our lives foregone, lives all what's the word, opportunity cost, or whatever that term is, the counterfactual lives that never happened. All sorts of things, the abuse and destruction to Irish. Just look at Aisling Murphy, right? Parnell Street, all of it. Afraid to go into town. Like, are you fucking joking me? Like, what's one of the biggest ways you're going to get robbed in an urban centre in Ireland, like a town or a shop or a city or whatever, on a bus? Who's going to pickpocket you? In some cases, maybe it's Irish, you know, young fellas and all that kind of stuff. But who's another group that's notorious for it? You know yourself, who would make boomers and older people. Oh, how often do you hear, I'm afraid to go into town these days, right? You know what they're afraid of. It's the alienation. It's the distrust. It's largely a lot of these interloper groups of kind of, not just, this isn't just like an all foreigners thing, but you know, the lowest of the low version that are like hanging around, loitering in town and city centers, various types of groups and you don't know what sort of, like, if you go into Donald Clark's favorite street, Talbot Street, or Gardner Street, or Mountjoy Square area, O'Connell Street, parts of Cork City, whatever, lots of smaller towns are fucking goosed as well. You know, you're not just looking at like, oh, a bunch of rowdy young fellas who are smoking fags and being a bit silly or whatever. You're looking at like Taken. Like, think about Taken when Liam Neeson goes after that network. You're literally seeing Taken people. I don't know what exact group they all are. It's a mix. But as a general sort of national or civilizational category, I would say they're the Taken people. There's a lot of them around town centres, and these people are, a lot of them, pretty ruthless, organised, tribed up, and running scams, running this, running that. You're literally seeing like mafia types on the phone, like big families, dozens of buggies around. They're all, you know, they, like, if your mum was like, sorry, can you help me there? I need something. Or do you think those people would help and not like just, I don't know, try to rob her? Or they just look at her and almost nod and go and just kind of turn around? Like, they wouldn't say anything nice. They wouldn't say, oh, sorry, what, love, what's the story? They'd just go, I don't know, and turn around, right? That'd be the best case scenario. So you've that cold, horrible, potentially criminal element in a lot of these places that a lot of older people, a lot of people in general, just don't want to go into town, right? And he's talking about they won't go in, a lot of them they don't want to go into town, he says. It's the complete fucking opposite, you know, for the most part. And again, I'm not like I say, I'm being generous, or I'm being fair here. I'm not saying all foreigners, any foreigner in town. I'm talking about the specific quality. You know what I mean? I'm not talking about you're in Newbridge and there's some, like, you know, whatever working tech company foreigner, and say what you want, but like, you know, they're just kind of middle class or whatever. I'm speaking specifically to Micheál Martin's point. Towns and cities going into town. That's where you get the worst. It's just nuts. It's just crazy. The whole thing is so fucking threadbare. And if Ireland for the Irish is meant to be incitement, then I don't know, call me whatever you want, because I'll be saying it. And I'll be saying a lot more than that too. And I don't care how stringent they get with the laws. Jail, go for it. Do whatever you want. Because no way. I'm not, we don't live in Singapore, you know? I wouldn't sign up for Singapore. The civic nationalist kind of Iron Fist. But they're technocratic. It is, from what I know, equitable. It's not like a Chinese supremacist thing or whatever. You know, everyone gets a kind of fair enough shake under the Iron Fist. Tamils and the rest of them. But that's one thing. Would you accept that bargain or not? I don't know. I don't think I would. But it's not even that. You know, at least in that case, if someone said, well, you putting out these sort of nationalistic tribal phrases is incitement, and we can't have that in this country. We are a post-nationalistic, technocratic sort of state that's just all about function, and you know, we can't have that sort of old world stuff. It breeds violence, it breeds tribalism, and we're smashing all that, you know. I'd say, okay, maybe I'll say it and you'll put me in jail, but at least I know the basis of it has some fairness to it, you know. But it doesn't. It's like the tribalism is off the fucking wall. Think of all the tribalism among all these foreign groups. Indians. Just look at Romas, right? I hate to pick on Romas. Yeah, like, you know, tribalism. Like, go away. Tribalism and making people. Obviously, I think they're the best people ever, and all of that, just for the NGOs to hear or whatever. But you know, tribalism and like making people uncomfortable or afraid. Now, Micheál Martin says it's okay to ascribe that to groups. He's saying Irish people are like that, or a certain amount of Irish people are like that, racist and threatening and whatever else. So if it's fine to do that, I'm speaking about a minority, we'll say, of Roma gypsies as well, just like Micheál Martin is. It's just, I just can't accept it. Like, I can't accept any of that. You fucking white bastards. It's 400 years of slavery. Kick in the face. You could think of a ton of other examples. Just the simple fact of the Indian Community Council of Ireland, this, that, and the other. I'm going, where's the Irish Council of Ireland? And people say that's the Irish government. It's like, no. That's a democratically elected government. I'm saying an NGO-funded lobby group that is specifically for the ethnic needs and grievances and all the rest of it of Irish people. Just like the Roma Traveller group is, none of that is there. The whole, like, I personally, I would just have to go to jail. Not for committing a crime, but for not hate speech, truth speech or whatever, saying Ireland for the Irish. If it had to be jail for that, I'd just have to go. I would just have to go because there's no way. I assume you would too. So one of you says good man Gerard, but I hope I'm not on my own with that, like, ideally. But and of course, it's a troll. I don't think that, it's like, I'm not telling me to be like a carnival barker here. I doubt they're actually throwing anyone in jail. I'm not trying to be like a rage baiter. Not quite. Like, when he says that, he's just kind of putting it out there. It's part of a strategic communications type of thing to try and, like, back us into the corner a little bit, try to gradually over time make these slogans and phrases that a few years ago would have been considered obvious truisms into being controversial, into being Confederate flag, into being a swastika, into being American History X or whatever, trying to kind of put that sheen on it. And that starts with just gradually introducing these things. I don't think Ireland for the Irish has been or will anytime soon be declared an actual indictable crime, you know what I mean? But still, it's still being put out there as such. And at the end of the day, what he's getting at is that whole basic concept. Irish people being nationalistic, or even being, and this is the mad thing, right? I mean, I know I've kind of said this, but it's like, even if you take out the nationalism, let's say, right? And I'm always doing like this, it sounds like I've given up on the idea of a country, but let's just say, for argument's sake, we're not doing nationalism, as in, like, Ireland. Let's say Ireland for the Irish, and this is our country. Every blade of grass, blood and soil, Padraig Pearse, all the rest of it, right? Let's say we're not doing that, and sorry, I've gotten sniffly, but I feel like I need to sneeze, but I can't. Anyway, but it's fucking bothering me. Excuse the language. We're not doing that sort of nationalism, and we are now just a patchwork of communities, they call it, right? So you've Indians, you've Irish, and the country is, let's say, 30% ethnic Irish, but then it's like 22% Indian, and then it's like 18%. It's such a patchwork that there really is no strong dominant majority. It really is like a patchwork ethnic state, and we have abandoned even like the flag and some of the other stuff, and even the language, and or maybe not the language. We've gone past it. We're post-nationalist officially, but there's the Indian community and there's all that. Like, even under those terms, Micheál Martin and what he's just whatever, the regime, what they're pushing for is still intolerable, because even under that framework, then we can't exist as people. We are basically just lambs to the slaughter, politically and physically, discriminated against, despised, oppressed, disenfranchised, dispossessed. Constantly. Even then, even when you go, hey, no, it's not Ireland anymore, it's just called East Atlantia or whatever, but even under there, we're just we're the Hutus or the Tutsis or whichever one it is. We're the people at the end of the machete, effectively, in one sense or another, where okay, so the Indian group can be Indian this, Indian that, Indian community. Oh no, hair on an Indian head was touched. It's a nightmare. But then you turn around to the Irish. Oh, we're the Irish community. No, 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 no. There's no such thing. You shut up. You're far right. You go, oh, an Irish person was just slaughtered there, with just stabbed to death, and the guy was talking about, you fucking white bastard, you pig, or whatever, and they just sweep it under the rug and they say nothing, and in effect, almost condone it through their silence. Or worse again, the Irish person said, I'm proud of who I am. I don't like what's being done to my community by you Indians or whatever, right? And some Indian or African kills him. And just like with Charlie Kirk, they say, oh, well, he was chauvinistic about his own group. So in effect, he signed his own death warrant. His death isn't really a death. Like, it's not something you would mourn. It's not actually a loss because it wasn't really a life to begin with. You have that like hardcore genocidal dehumanization. And this kind of banning of tribalism. Like, if your tribalism is banned and the others is encouraged, if the others are glorified and you are demonized, if their numbers are swollen and they have through this constant immigration, and they come from a huge motherland with this whole power network where their country is in effect an ethno state or a nationalist state, the likes of India, to refer back to, then you're just fucked. You're basically a genocide, lined up for genocide, right? So that's just why I don't listen. Like, Ireland for the Irish. I have to say Ireland for the Irish, because if we don't, then we're just going to be like, we're going to be, dead broke, our kids attacked, whatever the Sam Hyde quote is. You're going to be the girl in the train, the Ukrainian girl in your debt doesn't matter, but if a hair on a brown head is touched, then that is like a national day of mourning. All of this stuff baked into the cake just can't be allowed. There was just random tweets up in front of me here. It got me thinking, right? The whole incitement thing, and this is like, I'll finish up in a sec. The whole incitement thing. I was looking at this. Fucking bastard. Twitter wouldn't let me tweet something earlier for whatever reason. It just wouldn't post. And then I posted it later, and it's not actually the full post. I can explain it to you. Okay, I'll explain the tweet I saw earlier, right? Anyone who's seen it now is going to be like, what's the context? Because the link isn't in it, and it was earlier, so the tweet doesn't make sense, and I posted it just before I went live. It was some... I'm just going to have to delete it because it makes sense. But it was some Irish Antifa account, right, had said about Charlie Kirk that something along, a picture of him with the bullet in his neck, right, or whatever, like just as he's being shot, and said something like, oh, he's a good fascist now, or something like that, right? And the reference was to the Antifa slogan, the only good fascist is a dead fascist. So something along some macabre, obviously, because it's Charlie Kirk in the midst of being killed. And it says, oh, he's a good fascist now, And this Antifa account, and it got me thinking about them, this Antifa thing. If you think about the logic, and there's Antifa's back on the brain, right? So much to say about them in a way. The logic of their extremism and where they fit in Western society, they've died down a bit over the last few years because they were kind of replaced. I was thinking about, like, there's this. Okay, there's a song that gets stuck in my head sometimes from Ruski back in the day. This was like 2018, the old asylum industry days, the early days. And it was a bunch of like British accented blow-ins in Ruski who were all like NGO connected, trying to have this fake protest, even though everyone in Ruski, all the locals and the bumpkins, are against it. There's all these like semi-British, like liberal weirdos in Ruski doing a Friends of the Community demonstration, and they all have like printed out signs, and they're outside the hotel. And I don't know why it sticks in my head, but they were singing this 2 songs. They were singing, "Oh, why are you blaming refugees? Oh, why are you blaming?" So I don't know what kids rhyme or whatever that's based on. I forget the song. But and then the other one was "Give asylum seekers equal rights. Give asylum seekers equal rights." And one of my kids has like a little toy guitar thing, and you press a button and it plays little songs, "Twinkle Twinkle Little Star" or whatever. And one of them is that tune, and every time it plays, I hear that fucking song. "Give asylum seekers equal rights," and "Oh, why are you blaming refugees?" And the reason it stuck in my head at the time, and why I posted it at the time as remarkable, is because there was so many British blow-in people in that crowd that the actual chorus of about 20 people sounded on aggregate British, which I just thought was funny. A funny comment on it. And anyway, so that gets stuck in my head, and then it led me to thinking about those days. I thought, oh God, we don't see that anymore. I remember those days. It's not like that anymore. And then it dawned on me, oh yeah, they outlived their purpose. We grew big enough, and they just swapped one uniform for another, where instead of it being them to kind of choke out any little bit of meek resistance from a local population, and maybe someone like me popping down with a smartphone or whatever, it was enough to get these NGO heads to sing songs and kind of demoralize and put fear in everyone. And then if the local Shannon side newspaper and Irish Times being like, questions about, is there a far right element in Ruski? Local Ruski councillor says far right are not welcome here. And they could play all that game and kind of quell it all through kind of verbal and media fear or whatever, right? But then we broke that barrier down. We kind of mainstreamed it all. We got the Antifa and the NGOs dead to rights. The asylum thing escalated, and people just weren't having it anymore. The normies in the towns were like, we won them over and all that. And it escalated into sort of more of an issue over time. And so the Antifa crusty kind of mutants or whatever had outlived their usefulness. They were useless at that point, redundant. And they swapped it out for the guards. They swapped it out for a big fat guard with a can of pepper spray, right? So it gets me thinking that, of course, Antifa all along were just, this is not like breaking news or anything, but they were always just sort of state actors. Like if you were in China and there was someone did an anti-Xi Jinping, anti-CCP protest in Beijing, they said, we don't like Xi Jinping, the cost of electricity has gone up too high or whatever. They might not send Beijing police department down. They might send a bunch of masked people who claim to be Chinese, some other political faction, who come down as apparent opponents and beat them up or something and sort of scatter the whole thing. And then they get all the details on the original anti-Xi protesters and post, oh, this guy walked out in his kids 10 years ago and this other guy, didn't pay his taxes and blah, 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 dirt on all of them and attacking them and beating them up. And, if you're looking at that from the outside in, you'd go, I don't know, I'm starting to think these masked goons or whatever might be paid, but like they might be part of the state kind of more officially. Like, I think that's what they're doing there. You have the Rally for Peace on Earth a few years ago. So the government were floating new hate speech legislation, censorship rules, right? And I just got distracted by your chats, sorry, but I'll get to them in a while. But so we were opposing the censorship introduction by the government, and they did this thing called the Rally for Peace on Earth to oppose it, to oppose us opposing the government. And you kind of go, why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just protest whatever it is you believe off wherever you are? I'm not going to be following you. It just seems counterintuitive. Why do you keep following us around to basically keep stopping us? Like what's your thing? What do you want? What's your positive vision? You seem to just exist to kind of hunt us down, follow us around, and interrupt us. And interruption is the big thing. Loud music and this and that. It feels like it's a professionally targeted kind of job. You know, this doesn't feel like normal activism. You're violent, you get away with violence. And they came along and did that. And I did the video at the time where I discovered that among maybe 50 to 100, maybe even a little bit less, of these radical liberal and Antifa activists, between all of them and the various organizations they officially represented, there was about upwards of 20 million euro in government funding. So, like, take my China analogy, right? You go, that's a good analogy and all that. And I suppose it makes sense if you were looking at it in an outside context, you'd see it more clearly. But, like, I don't know, maybe that's true, maybe that's not. Let's look at it more closely. Well, okay, we'll just take Ireland. Forget the analogy. Same thing happens in Ireland. And it's, I don't have to speculate. I don't have to sort of infer. I can tell you that they are funded with like more than 20 million euro worth of state money exists among 50 to 100 of these people, right? Who are standing literally in front of Leinster House or the Dáil or whatever. They're standing in front, they're literally standing with their backs to it, opposing us with their facing it, right? It is mental. And the guards are standing in between us with their facing us as well. Because you can always tell which way the guards are, but which way they face. You know, it's like, okay, like, I mean, at what point is it kind of a theory, and at what point is it just like, you know, obvious? And by the way, the 20 million isn't speculation or kind of joining dots or whatever, just in financial reports, like openly, you know, not hidden at all. Here's the government funding, here's what they do, here they are. So that's what Antifa always were, was not a bunch of diehard leftist ideologues, really committed, really true believers and all of that. They're dirtbags, they have some beliefs and all that. But what they really are is this extension, this sort of attack dog at the margin of the regime. So when you go to someone like Micheál Martin, you go to Ursula von der Leyen, you go to, you know, the IMF, or you name it, right? NATO, any of that. That Antifa might claim to be anti-NATO, but at the end of the day, that same regime, literally like banks, military, governments, the liberal idea, the post-nationalism, all of that stuff that comes with like the Ukraine flag waver, like the boomer sort of Fine Gael, a von der Leyen kind of tier of like clean, high-level liberal kind of Carrigaline or whatever, that type. Antifa are basically their sicking dog, like, you know, that's what it is. They have the same interests. You listen to Antifa and all their stuff, and then you go back to Micheál Martin or any of the rest of these talking heads. It's the same. It's that they have the same ideology. It really, really is, you know. And they attack the same targets. It's very, very clear. So anyway, we go back to looking at Antifa and their stated claims and the idea of what is incitement, what is extremism. You look at any good fascist is a dead fascist, right? And Charlie Kirk is now a good fascist because he got his neck blown out with a rifle, right? A sniper, assassinated like in cold blood in front of his wife and kids for debating, so being at literally as he's debating people. That's a good dead fascist. Now you get back into some other Antifa slogans and you think about what is a fascist, right? So I never signed up to be a fascist. I don't run away from it. I don't say no, you know, and all of that. I have some revisionist views about World War II, but it's the same way some of them go for Germany. I'm not a German. I haven't read Carl Schmitt or I've never read Mein Kampf. I've never read your man. What's the Italian guy? I can't even remember his name, right? I'm more of I learn through reality in the moment person. I like a bit of history, but I've always come to my ideas through lived experience and just figuring out what's happening in front of me. It's good to learn from history, but I'm more of a present learner, right? That's just the way it is. I unravel it for myself in the moment for the time that I'm in. And I don't run away from the fascism argument. I don't condemn it and all that kind of stuff, whatever. It's just another ideology. It's part of history. Some of it's useful. Some of it's relatable, all that. And I've some revisionist views on World War II as well and all that. I don't buy the narrative. But I'm no more a fascist or a national socialist or a Italian fascist or whatever it is than I am a Japanese, whatever it's called, the emperor, whatever you call that, the dynasty or whatever they call it, right? The empire, like their whole thing. You know, I'd be like, if you ask me about Japan in World War II, I'd say, well, they were oil embargoed because they wanted to kick Western colonialism via America kind of out of Asia, which they have a right to do. And it ended up being China in the end, and it's complicated and all this kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, someone was inevitably going to reclaim Asia. And, you know, the West weren't comfortable with it yet. They're still challenging China now on it. But back then, Japan were kind of going for it. Some of the East Asians, they're kind of all similar, Koreans, Chinese, Japanese, they were doing it. And I would think they had a right to. And they were oil embargoed and crushed by America, and Pearl Harbor was probably set up, right? As in the Americans knew it was happening, they incited it to happen, blah, blah, blah. I might have those views, but that doesn't make me like a Japanese emperorist or whatever. You know, that's not me. I've similar views. I'm in favor of, I'm on the side of East Germany in the latter half of the 20th century. I'm not a communist, right? Necessarily. Or a Stalinist or a this or a that. I've my own views. They are what they are. So the fascist thing, just on purely technical terms, it's like, well, I don't wear the uniform. I'm not sort of what's it called? Like those medieval people who reenact the thing or whatever. I'm not even, like I say, I haven't read the books. I'm too uneducated. I haven't read it. So it's just like, you know, I don't, if someone said, what are you? I wouldn't say I'm a fascist or I'm a German, this or that. It's just not relevant, that as relevant as they make it out to be. So it's not based on that, but they'd go, no, it's about something deeper. It's not about the nation or the particular time in history. It's about what's in your soul and what your intentions are. And what your intentions are to kill and harm lots of people or whatever. And I talked about that last night. It's like, well, I mean, if you ask me, I'll be honest with you. Is that me? No. So like, again, what's making me the fascist who's better, the best to be dead or whatever? If fascist is what makes you good to be dead, then what am I? Of course, they seem to make it up. You know, you don't get a right chance to be involved in that. There's no clear definition. And you come back ultimately to, are you an enemy of Ursula von der Leyen and Micheál Martin and all of that shit? Trans rights for kids, endless migration, your group being basically dead meat on a train in Charlotte and it not mattering. If you have a political opinion, even vague kind of Christian ones and stuff like that, you can just be shot and it's not really a thing to mourn. Like the EU Parliament or whatever it is, booed a silence for Charlie Kirk, right? It's just a macabre thing to do, because ultimately why they would boo that down, because they say a minute's silence is to mourn or respect the passing of a dead person. He may be dead, but he wasn't really a person. You know, that's the whole thing. And you can't really kill him. Like, he wasn't murdered. He just, because he wasn't human or didn't have all those fundamentals to begin with. The dehumanization is off the wall. But point being, it's the same ideas as the regime. It's like, it's not about whether you have some big obsession with Germany in the 1930s or whether you have some weird, apparently secret genocidal desires or any of that stuff. It's just, do you oppose the onslaught of this, the march of this sort of imperial idea, this anti-nationalist, anti-sovereign, anti-just good, you know, against the good for being good, anti-family, anti-community, anti-sense, anti-independence, anti-self-sufficiency, all these kind of good things, your community and social trust and social order and rites of passage and all that stuff, right? All that has to be melted into just this, like, you know, kebab shop pizza and manky streets and like gypsies everywhere, and then like some sort of weirdo degenerates and no kids and just ugly, dangerous, unpleasant, like this kind of like sub Blade Runner to your dystopia, right? and then like uber elites living in small enclaves or whatever. Utter powerlessness for the masses, Indianification. If you just oppose that and you say, no, well, I like the social order, I like the high trust, I like the organic nature of society, I like these structures, these traditions that don't depend on laws and regulations and HR. I like things to just exist. I like nature. If you're one of those people, then you're a fucking fascist, right? And that's basically, according to von der Leyen, really, and that type, right? The suited and booted types, and according to the dirtbag Antifa, it really is a continuum. And so if you look at it, the only good fascist is a dead one. And pretty much anyone who vocally, like outwardly opposes it, says, hey, I'm me and I oppose it. Like if you come out and you just say, I'm against immigration, and someone says, why are you against immigration? You go, because X, Y, and Z, for economic reasons, for this and for that. And then you say also because like my people, like, you know, I'm a people, same way as the Indian community is a community. I have my community, do I not? You say, you basically don't cuck out on that. You're stubborn. You say, no, I don't believe that. I'm not going to believe it. And I see what's happening. It's wrong and I oppose it. That's it. I didn't say I want to round people up and kill people and this and that and the other. I didn't say anything about Japan or whatever it is, or, you know, Mein Kampf or any of that. Like, that's not the issue. The issue is that just I'm opposing the system here, really. And I won't back down, right? I'm just sticking with it. That makes you a full-fledged fascist as far as any Antifa is concerned, right? So now you're a fascist, and the best way for you to be as a fascist is dead, murdered. Okay. There wasn't exactly a scientific criteria or a logical one for what made you a fascist, but you are one now, and that makes you dead. But it goes further, because there's an old saying among Antifa that, what is it? That if 9 people sit down at a table with one Nazi without protest, there are 10 Nazis at the table, right? So you get the idea there. If there's one Nazi in a room and the others don't actively protest, then they're fascists as well. Okay, so the only good way for those other 9 people, they're not even necessarily against immigration. Now they're dead as well. And this is real. People being murdered. You saw Charlie Kirk sitting in his chair getting taken out. Many other examples around the world of this. It is growing, right? You saw Locker in Fermanagh, National Party getting attacked with claw hammers and all that. Again, back to the state-backed thing. A bunch of lads in balaclavas dropped off in buses. How do you even get buses to drop you off with a load of claw hammers and balaclavas? I don't know. They attack a bunch of people. There's women and kids there, and they seriously injure some people. This is, by all means, a mass terrorist attack, right? Like, that's what it was. And nothing was said. No one was ever brought to justice. That was condoned by the regime. It was condoned by this people in the suits and all the rest of it, and the guards and all of it. There is no distinction between Antifa and the regime itself. They want you dead, and so do Micheál Martin, and more so the people Micheál Martin works for. That whole inner system wants you fucking dead. Same way as it is with Charlie Kirk, even though he's a different flavor. Same as with the Ukrainian girl. I'm sure most of them would have said that's very sad. We don't like seeing someone get stabbed, but they would stick to it was just someone that just got stabbed. And you say, well, he said, I got that white girl. They go, I don't know, I can't hear you. Sorry. They walk. So you go, okay, so you're not being fair. Whatever. Okay, we'll do George Floyd. That's fine, but we'll do this as well. He said the words. He mentioned the race. It is what it is. We have the statistics. No. So they're basically saying her death doesn't matter. She doesn't count. She's not human. Her race isn't a race. Her victim category, it doesn't exist. So, but all the others exist in spades. That's, of course, game theory, not going to work. That makes you a lamb to genocidal slaughter over time. That's the belief of the regime, and it's the belief of Antifa. It's not just a bunch of outside weirdos, necessarily. They represent the core. But if you think about the logical extension of that, okay, so you have the one fascist, okay, where you're staunchly against immigration and all that, so you're dead. And then the 9 others who just sit in a room with you are dead too. And when you think about that, you could have someone who says, I'm open borders, No, there's layers. First, you have the person who says, I'm actually a centrist. I'm not committed to any particular ideas or advancing an ideology in per se, but I do believe in free speech. I want to talk to all sorts of people. I want to talk to everybody, right? And I want to hear all the ideas. I'm an ideas person. I'm a free speech person, dialogue and communication person. So I end up talking to Garrod or whoever it is, right? I'll talk to them. I'll hear them out and I'll talk to them, challenge them, agree, disagree. And they would say, oh, well, you're definitely a fascist, right? Because your platform, not only are you not protesting him, because that's their bar, it's a very low bar, much more again, you're actually not just not protesting him, but you're facilitating him and you're talking to him. Fascist, right? That's the neutral person. Now you could go all the way up to someone who is advancing an ideology. They say, I'm advancing open borders. I'm advancing anti-discrimination, harmony and love between all peoples. And I don't like racism and stuff like that. But they say, hey, I believe in Garrod's right to speak. They just have a free speech principle as well. And they're saying, because we have such opposing ideologies, I do want to talk. I want to reconcile. I want to see where we agree. I want to see, can we heal wounds, all that kind of stuff, right? Now, the Antifa would say, oh, well, you're fucking fascist now as well, because you're the person in the room. You're not protesting them. You're not trying to kill them. You are a fascist as well. I mean, it goes a long way. It's extremely subjective, and it's basically a blank check to kill whoever you want. And the grounds for it are so subjective that it's just, you know it when you see it, you do it when you want, you kill anyone you want. And you could say they either said something racist, allegedly, or they didn't condemn someone who said something racist, or anything. It could be anything. They just have a license to kill, and for the rest of society, official society, to just kind of tacitly condone it. And this account, who said, oh, this is a good dead fascist. This, Charlie Kirk, he's just has ideas or whatever. But it could extend from a Charlie Kirk, it could extend to the likes of me, and then it could extend to the random person who says, hey, I just think you should have a right to speak and I'm willing to talk to him or whatever, just for discourse reasons. That person could potentially get it too, by some lunatic. And it's not spicy language, it's not radical views, it's not divisive rhetoric, discrimination, hate speech, any of that stuff. That's part for the course. That's part of the nature of ideas and disagreements, right? That's kind of subjective. We're talking about straight up, unambiguous incitement to murder and active celebration and incitement to murder. It's Alexa, give me the dictionary definition of the incitement to not just violence. People talk about incitement to violence, incitement to murder, to mass murder potentially, right? That's going on all around us. And it's an extension of the same thing that Micheál Martin is advancing with his, well, you can't say Ireland for the Irish. Why the fuck can't I, right? You're trying to basically slow push this genocidal set of conditions upon us. And you're doing it by saying I can't have the most basic of ethnic identity based protections or sort of self-identification. You're saying I can't have that. Not only can I not have a country, I can't have a slogan. I can't, if I'm beaten and killed and people say shout 400 years of slavery, I mean, it just doesn't count. You're not a person. You're a human being, so you were killed. So that's tragedy that one human killed another, but it's nothing more than that. If 10 people are killed by a foreigner doing the same thing, it'll be the same way. He was just mentally ill, he was just this, he was just that. There's never a conversation to be had, because that would break their ideology and their agenda to say, oh, well, that was actually an anti-white, anti-Irish, whatever, hate crime and all this. They don't do it. So the same people who are telling us Ireland for the Irish is incitement to violence will say nothing when someone says the only good fascist meaning effectively anything they don't like, it is a dead one and to be murdered. And you might say that's a funny slogan or whatever. No, they're applying it to Charlie Kirk, who was just murdered. So it's very real. It's not something they LARP about. They'll follow through on it, right? And he's just been killed, and they're basically saying, good, tick the box, that was great, exactly as we had been saying. And in fact, the more the better. That's what they're saying, right? And it's like, Micheál Martin's nothing to say about that. No, that's not incitement. So that's all. I effectively, I just wanted to bring it to that comparison. We have people being shot in the neck, and because of, call it stochastic terrorism or whatever, because of this narrative, Antifa and the dumb bitch on TikTok, right, who's like, Charlie Kirk did, or you know, like, she doesn't know what she's talking about. She's indoctrinated in like whatever colleges and stuff like that, brought to that point, right? That is not normal. It's not because women are like this or this, that, or the other. It's none of that. It's because they're more prone to indoctrination. Young women are, and to conformity or whatever. But ultimately, it's who did it. It's the regime itself. Those people aren't all indoctrinated by some dirtbag Antifa thing directly. They're indoctrinated by the movies and by the schools and by the everything, by the HR and the whole lot, to the point where sort of girls on TikTok, some of them, or whoever, it's kind of leftist activists, they don't just say, I'm happy Charlie Kirk got killed. They're saying it's great, as in like, it's great or it's fine because he said this once, you know, that kind of stuff. That's the level of incitement we're at. People gushing blood out of their neck in front of everybody, right? The rhetoric which condones that is just out in the open. Like the ideology, the rhetoric, all that condones straight up, point blank slaughter, right? I wish I was kind of exaggerating that, or just, that's it. Is pushed by the regime itself at the center, tacitly, by the Antifa of the same organism on the outer end of it. So openly, it's mind-boggling, right? Straight up incitement to slaughter of law-abiding citizens who have views that are probably representative of a huge chunk of the population, views that are statistically, objectively mainstream. Like if you say, I'm against immigration, I want to deport a lot of them, and, you know, we've our rights and it's our country and all that kind of stuff. You know, probably a majority of Irish people kind of in some form or another would agree with that. So objectively, their mainstream view is you're a law-abiding citizen, you're expressing yourself, you're not breaking laws, you're not even using slurs. Even if you did, it wouldn't matter, but you're not. You're up for slaughter, to be literally slaughtered like a pig in public, in front of your family. Not to call Charlie Kirk a pig, you know what I mean, though, right? And that's basically condoned. It's effectively condoned. And by condoned, like, i.e., that's not incitement. That's just, I don't know, what is it? It's just the truth or something. I'm not inciting his murder. I'm just, like, I say it's okay if he's killed, or tacitly say that it's okay if he's killed. And that's not even incitement. It's just, he's just kind of getting what he has coming to him or whatever. Basically, he killed himself. That's the kind of psycho shit we're in. It's like, well, you know, he was killed by his own hand, really, by his evil words or evil ideas or something like that. That's the notion. And meanwhile, he's coming out and saying it's incitement to violence for us to say Ireland for the Irish. Now let's get back to the basic thing of that. Ireland for the Irish. If it's not for the Irish, then it's not Ireland. That's like saying, you know, I'm sort of dumbfounded a little bit by it. It's like, well, clearly Ireland would be for the Irish, right? What the fuck else would it be? Africa for Africans. Now, if you get rid of all the Africans there and you bring in a load of Polynesians, it's still a landmass, but it's not Africa anymore, right? It's not Africa and everything, the connotations of that. It's just, call it something else. Change the name. China, the name refers to, not to the, it's not that if you go to a random river and you pick up a rock, that the rock is really Chinese. It's not, it's a rock, right? The land mass itself doesn't necessarily make it China. The reason that that landmass and territory and polity is called China is because it relates to the Chinese people, their history, their posterity, their culture, their nation, their polity, all the rest of it. That's what makes it fucking China, right? So if it's not for the Chinese, then it's not China. It's rocks, right? The same goes for Ireland. So yes, Ireland for the Irish is basically a tautology, right? And that's think of how genocidal even just the pushback against that simple slogan actually is. And meanwhile, it's okay for us to be slaughtered, and it's like either Antifa are cheering like hyenas, or the mainstream, the ones in the suits, are sort of just like passing it by, saying nothing, almost like the people on the train in Charlotte with the Ukrainian girl. She kind of looks to them and they kind of just lean over and just walk away. It's kind of like that. This is a situation I cannot tolerate. It's like, you know, I have to talk about it. If it's jail, if it's whatever. I'm not trying to act the martyr here. If it's death, I'm not trying to do the big man speech on if they kill me and all this. But it's like, well, yeah, like I'm sure there are certain rules and taboos and all of this that if someone said, would you die or be imprisoned or persecuted for those, that I'd say, I can forgo that. You know what I mean? I'm not running in at opportunities here for self-sacrifice. Most of us are rational. Duck the head down, keep going, maybe just accept the get cooked out on that thing, fair enough, or whatever, But this is too much. It's like, I can't. It's not even about romantic nationalism or, it goes all the way to just human existence. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, I can't not have an identity and logic and a sense of self-protection and all of that in this scenario. If we lived in global Singapore or something, maybe it would be a different story. I wouldn't like that. I wouldn't sign up for that. But on a human level, maybe that could be gone along with in some way. But this isn't like that. We have the two things happening at the same time. We have the genocidal, identitarian, tribal shit for everyone but us in our own countries. And then at the same time, if we push back against it in any way, basically, if you push back against it in any way, nothing to do with Germany or wanting to kill people or any of that, but if you just push back on that scenario, you become a fascist and you can be slaughtered. That little continuum there, that little sort of package deal can't be tolerated. And even if you're not a fascist or you don't say I'm against immigration, you just happen to be a white or Irish or a Western person in your own country. Even if you're like the Ukrainian girl, even if you're hip and the rest of it, right? And so you don't stick your head up. Well, you could be just getting stabbed out on a train by someone saying, I got that white girl, and all the others just kind of look at you and you just fall on the floor. And someone comes along and kind of like drags your body away and chucks it in the bin, and they just like hose it down, but then if the opposite happened, it would be a national outrage, cause for riots and pogroms, so it's like you kind of can't run away from it. I just won't be an activist. I'll be a quiet one. Well, good luck getting on the train. Good luck buying a house. Good luck with any of that. It's not tolerable. It's intolerable. And so here we are. Here we are in this thing with the likes of, and is he the Taoiseach now? I forget which one of them is. Simon Harris, Micheál Martin's Taoiseach, I think. They swap around every couple of days or whatever. But that's the alleged Taoiseach, meaning like chieftain, the leader of the country. So I'm a person. I'm under a polity. I live in a polity, and there's a sovereign, allegedly, government of the country or country, people, whatever it is that I live in, and he's meant to be the chieftain, the chief executive of my country, whatever we're calling it, the thing that I'm in. And he's saying that, well, that's not going to work, bud. It just isn't. Sorry, I don't know where we're going to go with it, but it's not going to work. So I don't know any more than that for now. So anyway, a couple of super chats and we'll wrap it up. Do you know what? It's good. I like these streams because I don't know who or how many people or who watches or what the point is, right? In some way. But for me, it's great because I would just be thinking about this stuff. So it's just good for that, if nothing else. If nothing else, it's like I don't want to call you all receptacles, right? That'd be rude. But or I don't want to call like my computer here, but like, in a sense, it's good. It's therapeutic actually, because I feel like I'd be going mad just scrolling. Yeah, you can tweet and yeah, you can, but to be able to speak it and not quite just to the wall is good. So that's why I like being here. So we have Lockery gives 5. Thank you very much. And says Micheál Martin is a truly despicable embodiment of the Shoneen West Brit, never skips a beat in perpetuating anti-Irish rhetoric to further catapult his career. Yeah, like a vile individual. I tend to. Point taken, right? Like I was only talking about how much I hate his face a while ago, right? So, granted. But you know the way people go like Simple Simon, Leo the Leak, Micheál and all this kind of stuff. Oh, I really hate that one or this one. Like, I find them repulsive. But it's almost, to me, I'm sure you all feel this way too, really. But it's like, I just don't see them as people. Not to dehumanize their existence. I don't want them to get Charlie Kirk, right? I just mean, like, if they have a family and a life and they watch telly or they whatever they do, right? God bless them in their lives. But as public figures, it's like, I don't, they're not, like Lee Kuan Yew or Stalin or Bukele or who else is there? I don't know. You name it, like, you name it. People who, Imran Khan or something. These people are real political actors, right? They really are. They're real statesmen. These people aren't like, I mean, they're basically kind of actors, and so I don't almost afford them the thing of being like, oh, I don't like him. It's like there is no him really. Or some 37-year-old girl boss running Estonia or whatever it is. They're not really politicians, they're not statespeople at all, like in any sense of the meaningful sense of the term. They're just cardboard cutouts, like the same shit pours out of all of their mouths about all this. So I'll pay attention to what they say, but it's almost like it could just be like it could be like an old Thunderbird style, like fax machine, where like the latest bulletin kind of gets printed out and you rip it off and you go, what has it said now? It's not about, it's about where the message is coming from or the whatever, than the thing itself. And that's what it is, like a thing, it's vile how they create their entire existence to be this little fax machine thing. But, and it does make my skin crawl, but there is no them in a way. You were just dealing with this ethereal, not ethereal, whatever the word is, ephemeral, what's the vocab there I'm looking for? Intangible sort of thing. It's like whatever the sovereign entity is, that's the problem with the West. It's like they're much better off with Xi Jinping and the CCP because they know who governs. They know what the situation is. Genuinely, they like Xi Jinping and the CCP genuinely govern what goes on, and that's it. Like it or lump it, it's them, right? We don't know. We can speculate and all that. We kind of know, but like we can't. There's no mechanism. There's no mechanism at all. That's why it's like if we talk about China's not democratic or anywhere else. It's like you couldn't think of a less democratic system than what we have, like because the voting is bullshit too. Sure, if you put together just the right party and really persuade the public and got over 100 different barriers that are thrown in your way, and you eventually actually were about to get like voted in, they'd just kill you, or they would just like in Romania or other scenarios, just ban you, kill you, ban you, something like that. That's all a mirage. that you would never actually reach, right? It's a trick, basically. I'm all for playing the game, playing in the system, sure, but it is ultimately a mirage. There is no end to time where you actually get there and they say, grand, here's the keys, you won. No. But at least in China, they know who it is, and they actually are governed responsibly by an identifiable ruling class. But we just have dick face fucking Micheál Martin, so wonderful. Thank you for the super chat. Imperator Scotorum says, check out my Burkean article, Gaelic or Global. I will. I'll pull it up now. I'm not going to stream it out now, but I'll just pull it up for afters. Excuse me now. Let's get back. Okay, I didn't know you were doing the Burkean always has interesting stuff coming out, so I'll be checking your writing. I'm like the English teacher now, I'm sure you can write better than I can. That's a humble brag, or a humble, I don't know, maybe you can't actually. But I will be checking your writing, because I am into my writing. I criticize my own writing, but I am a keen observer. I like to think that I can know who's writing what, even if the names aren't announced in things. If I get familiar with someone's writing, I really enjoy the style, choices of words, all the rest of it. It's a very particular thing, writing, It's a kind of a lost art. But it's a beautiful thing is to write, actually. I do believe. Just saying. So anyway, I'll be reading that. I'm sure it's more about the content and the ideas and the politics than the prose or any of that. But just it's like a signature. It's like a signature. It's like a little look inside the flow of someone's brain, the flow of someone's ideas, and there's a little art to it, and it's a beautiful expression of an organization of thoughts. I'm describing what writing is, right? Obviously, but I enjoy it. It's one of those things. You could have a friend who you know very well, but if you got them to go write a story, a 20-page story, over a few weeks, and then you read it, it would still be fascinating to read, because even though you know them very well, it's like such an intimate thing to see what they wrote, what ideas they come up with, even if it's something kind of more officey, like a political article. It's still, the way people, it's like the flow of your mental tempo or whatever comes out. I'm going on about that way too much, I know, but it's rare these days. Everyone's posting online. Posting is not writing, you know what I mean? Streaming is not writing. Writing is superior. Thank you. So Roddy Murray too, we're not the extremists here, the politicians are. That is it. And that's the thing to maintain, is that, like, I am not. They can say, oh, you said something about National Socialism in a tweet we misinterpreted once. I'm not running from, like, whatever, like, Kanye West and his song and all. It's great crack, right? And I think they weren't, like, there wasn't good guys, bad guys in World War II, all that stuff, and blah, 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 and this and that didn't happen. But, like, it's like, I don't have to, like, distance myself from World War II. I don't have to embrace it. It's irrelevant in a sense. It's like, that's not the issue. And murder, whether I want to murder 10 million people and like a roller coaster or whatever, it's ridiculous as well. It's just about who is objectively being an extremist. And it's like remembering, regardless of the bullshit dressing they put on it, something to do with Germany or something to do with, you said this once, you said black people did this one time, or all that nonsense. It's like, or racist, literally just calling someone racist is such a nonsense idea in the first place, right? So it's not about any of that. And it's like, okay, so strip away all that nonsense, and there's nothing extreme about what I'm saying. What is, like, if you went to Indonesia and you showed up with, you said, hey, do you want to go to the new housing estate they're building around the corner? And they went around the corner to the new estate and they saw 80% of the people in the queue were Brazilian. They'd be like, what the fuck is going on? That's all we're doing. It's like, yeah, no, like, this is obvious. We don't want any of this stuff happening. And I'm not extreme. You're extreme. That's the thing. Micheál Martin, insofar as he is a person, is extreme. Antifa are extreme. All of them, they're insane extremist tyrants, and I'm not. So it is what it is. It's like, I'm not going to forget that. I'm going to remember that. You may be marginalized. You may be demonized, not by the populace, but by institutions. That doesn't. It's like I am not buying the frame though. I'm not extreme. I'm not crazy. And I'm not marginal. Just because you say so. You're and the other thing is the abuser. You want to abuse and hurt people. It's like, I don't abuse and hurt anybody. I don't, like, but this system does, by the hundreds of thousands every day, destroying people being attacked, all the rest of it, all the abuses that we're familiar with. I'm not going out doing that to people at all. Like, and I'm not doing anything to anyone. It's just like, I'm not buying all that frame at all. Bullshit. So anyway, that was the, thank you everyone for watching and all that. It's the comparison between Micheál Martin's thing and the fascist and the Antifa ideology and the Charlie Kirk kind of fallout. Is just, to me, if you just link those two things neatly, I'll maybe do a tweet to just like condense the idea. But those two things in conjunction are, when you think about how insane it is of what the Antifa /Radlib /IMF or whatever, what they're trying to say about us and what they're trying to permit and allow and excuse for us, and then what they're saying, the conditions that will make me a fascist who is best dead, murdered in front of my wife and kids, is if I say Ireland for the Irish. Ultimately, that continuity is there. That is the story. What are we making of that? What are we going to do about that? I don't know. Anyway, thanks for watching. Another ramble. I will leave it there. Go to bed. Mind yourselves. Thank you for watching and contributing and all the rest of it. Ihawa. See you.